guys, and welcome back to my show. I am Becoming by your host, Monica Singer. Thanks again for tuning in, you guys. Thanks for all the love and the support that you guys have been giving me. Thanks for the messages, the DMs, the comments. You know, feel free to subscribe and like on my YouTube and on podcast. You can listen to me on Apple Podcasts and also on Stitcher, and then go up to my YouTube. I am Becoming by Monica Singer. Subscribe, leave comments, whatever. You know, that'll help so that I can communicate better with you guys and know what it is that you guys want to hear. Even though you guys have been DMing me, and we've been communicating that way, and I know what you guys are liking, but you know, leave it in the comments, that way everybody else can see and we can all kind of collaborate together. So for today, episode 10, I have a very special guest. I have Jennifer Orellana.
Thank you.
She is co-founder of Women of Grit, which is a community of women that are empowering each other. So I'll have her, you know, explain a little bit about Women of Grit, what it is, you know, for everybody, for all of us to understand, you know, what it is that Women of Grit is all about.
Okay.
So,
well,
I mean, yeah, how did it start?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me to be here. I'm delighted.
And she was actually referred, you know, people, you were actually, I had a couple people that recommended you to be on my show. Because I always ask, like, hey, if you guys have anyone that you think would be good. So this is like, from coming straight from the following, they wanted to hear from you. So I had heard of you through Arlene, through our mutual friend. But then I had people DMing me saying, hey, you know, like this would fit totally into what it is that you're doing as far as like motivating and inspiring people on your show. So it was more than one person, and I was like, wow. Once I really looked into it, because Arlene had told me, you know, hey, come with me. She had invited me to a couple, but I never looked into it. She was just like, you know, this is something that I think you would like, and I was like, yeah, okay, but I never made time for it until someone showed me your page, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was blown away. And then I spoke with you, and I was like, wow, this is crazy.
It's on the same frequency.
Yeah, totally. So
yeah. So I mean, I always say there are no coincidences in life, and obviously, I think one of my favorite quotes as well is, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear."
Of course.
Which also just goes all hand in hand together. Like, I feel like when you're meant to meet someone, you're meant to meet them, and that's just because you're both on the same frequency.
Yeah, exactly.
So I love Arlene. She's, like I mentioned to you, she's been one that attended one of our events when it first started, and she's pretty much, whenever she can make it, being a mom as she is, she makes the time, and she's one of the advocates for Women of Grit, which I completely appreciate her, and many other women who have contributed to founding and supporting Women of Grit.
That's awesome.
So you asked me how it started.
Yeah, how did it start?
It's actually, it really came down from one day. I'm a working mom. And one day I came home. At the time, I only had my two kids. So now I'm a mother of three recently. So I have a 5-year-old, thank you, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-month-old. And so there was one day that I came home, and I was just really tired and frustrated from having a working day. You know, you deal with enough energy coming in and out from other people and whatever they've been carrying through their day, and it's almost like that energy's passed on to you, and you have to keep your cool, not to, you know, be expressive of however it is that you're feeling. So that day I just came home, and I was really tired, and the kids had a mess all throughout the living room.
When do they know?
My husband was on the couch watching TV, just like totally nonchalant. I look over at the kitchen, and there's a pile of dishes, and there's like crap all over that, like the dining table. So it was just one of those moments where I just honestly felt like crying. Which I'm sure you can relate. And so I just snapped, and after I snapped and started yelling at them, including my husband, like, come on, like, I've had a really long day. It's been a hard day for me, and I come home and I can't even unwind because I still have to wash these dishes, clean up, and make dinner and do everything else. And in the middle of all of that, I caught myself and I realized that I wasn't being authentic to myself and being the best version of myself. And that's all it took. And then I realized I needed to go ahead and create a community for women so that we would empower one another and pretty much just become the best versions of ourselves. And I realized in that second that I wasn't alone and that I probably wasn't the only woman feeling like this. Especially now, I think it's a very transitional phase for many of us as women that wear multiple hats.
Right.
We are not only a mom, we're not only a wife, we're also, you know, we bring a lot to the table. We're nurses when they're sick, you know, we're chefs.
We're maids.
Exactly. It's like, it's so much of it that I realized like it was a lot of little things that had gone into my jar that made me explode. And I was like, okay, I can't allow this to continue happening. There's obviously something in me that needs to be like let out. It's like a frustration. Yeah. And mind you, my way of zenning myself has always been working out. So prior to having my third son, I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym, similar to you.
That's the only time I can make time for myself. And then I feel guilty when they're home from school that I'm at the gym and I'm not paying attention to them. And then before you know it, it's time to take baths, time to go to sleep. Like, I felt guilty. So I'm like, you know what? I have to wake up at 5.
And that's something very common that I've discovered amongst the events that we've been having. So it was almost like an outlet for me by creating this event, and it was crazy how I believe, I'm a firm believer in the power of your words and what you put out there. The universe somehow says, okay, you have enough just in what you're saying that now I'm gonna go ahead and put it in, it's gonna go into full effect at this point.
Right.
And it was around my birthday a year and a half ago in July that I had this big gathering at Tao, once it had just opened in Hollywood. And I told all my, like some of my closest girlfriends, a lot of my closest family all attended. And I said, you know, I got really emotional just talking about it. And I said, this is what I wanna do, and I want you all to support me. Wow. And this is a dream of mine that I like, it just came into my head and I wanna do it. And it was crazy because when it first started, my husband was like, well, what are you doing? You know, like, come on, Jen, who's gonna show up to these events? But at the same time, it almost propelled me and pushed me, and it made me think really, well, why would someone show up to an event like this?
Okay.
You know? And I didn't take offense to it. It made me want it even more.
That's exactly how my husband was with me when it came to me working again. Like starting after I stayed home for a little bit, after having my kids, and then I pursued real estate, and I didn't have his full support. And it made me want it even more, just to show him like, I can do it. Like, I don't need your not his support, but I don't need your validation to do this. And to him it was like, since he was used to having me home, he would always just say, oh, don't go to work, just, you know, let's hang out, let's do this. And then we would argue, and it was like, well, you don't even work. And I'm like, well, you tell me to stay home, how am I supposed to work? So then when we would argue, I would say, you know what, I can't do this. Like, I need to work for me, and I'm not gonna stay home just because you don't believe in me or you don't think that I can do
But I think it's also this whole, again, I think the limited time, that if you go ahead and, like, for example, like I work and I'm gone a good chunk of my day. I wake up, I have to be out the door by 8 a.m. in order to be at work at 9 a.m. I get out at 6:30. I deal with the traffic. I don't get home till 7:30.
Yeah.
7:30 usually, almost 8 o'clock. By then, if I'm lucky, I can go ahead and have a quick conversation with my husband, with my kids. Then it's like you said, getting them ready for bed. It's bedtime stories. It's getting them in the bath, prepping them for school the next day. And it's literally, it's like a hamster wheel. It's like a routine that I ended up realizing, well, it's not so much that he wants to hold me back. It's more so that he feels there's not enough time in the day for me to go ahead and give that quality time to him. And also, it's also adapting to change, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's, believe me, like at first I was very like receptive to what was going on, and I was like, you know, if you're telling me to stop, then I'm gonna go full throttle. You know, but at the same time, I ended up realizing, and I'm very big on self-help books. I'm very big on personal growth and development and the mindset shifting, and it all ties in, which is why I felt that it was so important to incorporate all these different topics into each event for Women of Grit. So when it first started, I said, well, what do I want to focus on first? And I said, spirituality. So that was the first event that launched. Then the second event was, I believe it was finance. So I had finance advisors telling women how to invest their money. Well, you know, what are you doing? You're just as important as the man. So do you have life insurance in place? Do you have a retirement account in place? Things that, you know we need to do, but we always put on the back burner. And
that's really cool. That's really cool.
So it was just tackling different topics. So every month it was a different thing. And then it was like, okay, well, fitness is important to me. So let's go ahead and have a fitness coach go ahead and talk to us about what her routine looks like, you know. And obviously when you talk to a fitness instructor or someone who's their life is consistent of that, you realize that you're like, okay, well, maybe it's a bit unrealistic for me to go full throttle like you. But I feel like if you start grabbing bits and pieces from those people that are doing it full on, then you're gonna start being a better version of yourself by little bits and pieces of what you're collecting.
And one thing that I've learned from, like you said, you know, reading these self-help books and self-development books with people like Tony Robbins and even Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, that I listen to. They're more real estate based, but they're still great with, you know, business planning and stuff. They talk about those things that you just mentioned, like your physical fitness, your spirituality, your finances. Also, they talk about relationships. They talk about what else is there? There's
even self-love.
Yeah, you have to really, in order for you to live a happy life, you have to be fulfilled in all of those areas. You could have all the money in the world, and if your physical being is not good, what does it matter? If you're sick, if you're not healthy, like, what does all the money in the world mean? It means nothing. Or vice versa. If you are physically fit and you have a six-pack and you look great and you're amazing, but you don't have the career path that you want, or you're not making the money that you want, or you don't have the relationship or the love that you need, anything that is not, any one of those categories that isn't completely fulfilled can throw you completely off. So like with you and I think we were overwhelmed with like being at home. I know, like, for a while I used to be into fitness before kids. So once I had kids, it's hard to like incorporate it. And that's, like you said, it's kind of like, it's my Zen too. It's my time to, it's my meditation. It's like my time to not I don't think about anything. I don't think about like the kids. I don't think about my husband. I don't think about work. Like I clear my mind. And how often do you really get to clear your mind? Like,
and you know what's crazy is that I feel during that time is when I would get some of the best ideas.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. Like me too. I think because you're clearing your brain of all this fog, whereas some people they keep going every day. Like you said, it's repetition, repetition, repetition. You never get to clear your brain. So by you allowing to clear your brain for an hour a day, I'm sure it helps for like new ideas and new thoughts to come in, you know, to clear yourself of that brain fog. But yeah, I mean, I love that you guys talk about all those areas, because those are the most important topics when it comes to a person. Like you have to make sure that you're fulfilled in all of those areas in order for you to be happy. In order for you to be happy, every single one of those areas needs to be fulfilled. And it doesn't mean, like, finances doesn't mean you need to make all the money in the world. It just needs to mean that your finances are in order. You know, because if your finances aren't in order, you're going to be going crazy.
And it's so funny because even when you're talking about finances, it's proven. Like you will have individuals making X amount of money, and they will make more money the next year, but they're not saving more money. They're spending more money. Yeah. So it's almost like taking a step back and being able to internalize and analyze, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. What do I have to do in order to get from here to there?
Exactly.
And that is also even like pushing a reset and making women take a step back and realize, like, okay, like, I want to travel. I want to be like all these girls on Instagram that are Instagram famous. That one weekend they're in Hawaii, the next weekend they're in Tahiti. You know, and you're asking yourself, well, how much money do these people make in order to live this lifestyle? But the reality of it is even that. Like I think Instagram, I have a love-hate relationship with it, because you can go ahead and filter what you want to go ahead and feed into your life. And allow into your life. But at the same time, sometimes you get some of these feeds and pictures that make you feel less than, or make you feel unworthy, or make you feel like you're not enough.
Or like, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's one of the biggest things also to focus on some of the meetings that we've ended up having, is just being able to be mindful of the things that you allow into your life. Yeah,
that's so cool. So then, you know, you started this, like, how did your first meetup or
the first event was, so I reached out ironically to a group of girlfriends who had taken the plunge. They had started their own business. They had a little boutique. I think it was in Upland that they had just opened their store. And they went to high school with me, and I said, you know, again, love-hate relationship with Instagram. And I reached out to them. I said, hey, I've followed you on your journey. I want to support your business. So I'd love to put together my first event inside your boutique so that it's a win-win situation. And I want all the girls to shop and support your business. And again, the first topic was spirituality. My best friend, who is one of the most beautiful beings that I know, Lizette, her name is actually Lizette Alvarez. She went to high school with me. We've remained friends throughout all these years. She ended up getting married to her husband, Morgan, who they met while she was a news anchor for Univision.
Oh, nice.
Over on the East Coast, and he was playing for the NFL at the time. So they ended up meeting that way.
Nice.
Ironically, everything ended up working in both of our favors, because she ended up moving back to California after living, she kept moving all throughout the States, and I was like, when are you gonna make it back to LA? So finally she ended up moving back, and I said, this is the perfect alignment. I want you to be the first speaker of my Women of Grit. And she said, yeah, I would love to. So I ended up having a total of about 45 women show up to that first event.
Oh my
and
gosh.
A lot of it was support of lots of my girlfriends that were just, I'm going to show up because I want to support you, and I believe in you. And I think after that, we had the second event, which was the finance one. Okay. And it was a panel. And then it just kind of, it just kind of evolved. And then this year, I took a step back and I realized, I don't want to overwhelm myself, because again, it's creating that balance and making sure that I'm feeding my cup appropriately. So I told myself, I'm going to put together the first event, and I'm going to do it every 3 months. Okay. This year. So we had our first event. I felt like it was a great success. Now I actually have board members. Oh. So I have 2 board members that have jumped on, and they've been a massive support and help, because at this first event I was already pregnant, and so I had already given birth. And my son was, I think, 2 months. Oh, wow. So somewhere in my head, I didn't calculate like, oh, Jen, you're going to have your baby and you're going to be nursing. Oh, my goodness. And sleep deprived. How are you going to figure this out? Thank God for their support, because during the time that I ended up interviewing the panel for this last event, I had the girls kind of holding my son.
No way.
Yes.
Yes.
So I mean, I made it work. Yeah. And
luckily, they're kind of well behaved at that age. Well,
yes. No, and he's a really good baby. As long as you're on schedule. Oh, he's a really good baby. So I felt that I was very fortunate to attract the women that obviously believe in me, believe in the message. And also, it was a moment of truth for specifically like one of the board members. Her name is Myra. She's a business owner, and she's constantly going to networking events, and she's very big on self-improvement as well, self-development. And she said, I had a moment where I asked myself, do I want to continue supporting multiple organizations similar to yours, or do I want to go ahead and spend some time with someone who I truly believe in? And when she said that, like, I literally got so teary-eyed, because it made me feel extra special to know that she's like, I'd rather go ahead and spend that time with you and invest it in you and how I can help you and build this.
Yeah, that is so awesome. I think it's really important to have that community, because sometimes I feel like I've never attended something like that. I've never been to like a woman empowerment event or anything like that. But ever since I started doing my podcast, which is, motivational to help inspire people to, do what it is that they want to do, whatever goals that they have, I've gotten a community of people reaching out to me through Instagram. And, we talk, I've spoken to people on the phone, and it's just really cool to know that, like, this stranger that I've never met before wants to talk to me, or wants to, like, collab and do stuff together. And I just think it's really, really important, because the moment that I started working on myself, on my inner self, and on my outer self, I felt so much more confident. And even my relationship with my husband got so much better, like so much better, that I didn't realize I didn't realize where I really was. Like, I think I was a little bit more, less confident. And I think he noticed. I think he felt it. And I would just feel like any little thing he would say. And also, after having kids, sometimes anything can make you cry, or make you upset, or make you sad. So I think I was getting on his nerves for a while, where any little thing he would say to me, like, if he would say like, oh, that's stupid, I would cry, and I'd be like, why did you call me stupid? Like, you think I'm stupid? And then he would be like, Monica, like, you're overreacting, you're so emotional. And then I would feel like, just like a little girl. I just was so not confident in myself. And then it was like, I started working. I was really just starting to focus on my business, and that led me to reading all these like books and just trying to better myself. And within me doing that, and giving, you know, and not like letting me fall off. I wouldn't let myself fall off. Like I would tell my husband, like, I have to work out. I have to. I don't care if you want to go to dinner. I don't care if you need my attention. I don't care what it is that you want from me. If you want to watch a game and don't want to watch the kids, I'm sorry, but I need to work out. I need to do this for me. And once I kind of started putting my foot down, I've always been a giver. So I'm like, whatever you want, you know, whatever you want, whatever
That's
you want.
most women
a pleaser.
in general.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know if they take it for granted. I don't think my husband took it for granted, but I just didn't feel appreciated, you know? And so the moment I just started saying like, hey, watch the kids, I'll be back in 45 minutes, you know? I'll be back, I'm gonna go do this. It was like, what the heck? And then, but then he started seeing like a whole new person.
That you were probably more alive and more vibrant
Of
and
course.
more happy.
Yeah,
So
and it would rub up, and it was like the dumb little things he would say were no longer bothering me. I could joke around with him. We could just have a good time again. And my relationship with him has been like better than ever. So I just think like being confident within yourself, loving yourself is like 1000%. You need to love yourself before you can love anybody. Before
Which is funny because we ended up having one of the months that was the topic, was go love yourself.
Love yourself. Yeah. I feel like I have been in a relationship with myself before, and it was the most amazing thing ever. It was like I didn't need a man. I didn't need anybody. I didn't need a person to make me happy. And I feel like people might not ever get that opportunity. And I happened to have that opportunity to learn to love myself. This was before I even had kids. And it was after a long relationship, and it was after years of being single and being a man hater. And then I was like, I know. And then it was like, you know what? And then I always felt like there was like something missing. I'm like, okay, am I missing another half? Am I missing like, I don't know. I always felt like I was missing out on something. And then it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I need to stop saying yes to everybody, because I used to, you know, my friends needed me. My friends wanted to go out. They wanted to go to a party or to dinner. It was like, yeah, I'll be there. Anything to keep me busy and to not make me think about anything, right? And then it got to the point where it was like, I'm not even happy when I'm out. I'm not even happy when I'm with my girlfriends. Like, why am I doing this to myself? I want to stay home. I want to read a book. I want to work out. I don't want to drink, you know, like all these things would go through my mind, but I was always a pleaser, trying to, you know, keep my friends happy if they wanted to do something. But, you know, it got to the point where one year I was just like, I'm done making everybody happy. So literally there was even like birthdays, and my friends would say, hey, you know, we're going to the club, blah, 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 it's my birthday. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it, I have plans. But it's like, my plans are to work out and go to bed early, you know? And I started going to church that year. I hadn't gone to church in a long time, and I think spirituality also is very important. So you could have everything else, but you need, you know, I mean, it doesn't have to be God, but you have to believe in something, you know? You have to believe in something else. You have to be spiritual in order to be fulfilled, I feel. So once I started going to church, I started focusing on, you know, my working out, my physical, and then everything just started falling into place. I was a man hater prior to that for years. Like, I just didn't care about a guy or a relationship, but I wasn't happy. And once I started becoming fulfilled in these other areas and stopped saying yes to every event or whatever, and started taking time for myself. I started cooking for myself, like just full-blown meals for myself every day. I was buying myself flowers, you know, to have in my apartment. Like,
and those are the
to
little
make me
things that are
happy.
so important.
Yeah.
That I think we as women forget. And it's ironic that you say that, because I'm the one who does the grocery shopping on my days off, along with being the maid and making sure that the house is clean, you know. And you shouldn't feel bad for doing those things.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized, that like having these meetings and having these conversations with real women, just like you and I, you realize that, okay, you would hear some of them say, well, my husband doesn't buy me flowers, and like that fire that once was there is no longer there. Well, it's not so much about pointing the finger at your husband, because another thing I always say is when you point a finger, there's 3 pointing right back at you. So what can I do to make myself more happy?
Yeah.
What can I do to be a better version so that I'm not constantly nagging and nitpicking? Ironically, I think one of the biggest things that happened to me prior to getting married to my husband is I was in a relationship for a long time. And I found myself that that's exactly what happened to me. I ended up losing who I was to end up making sure that the relationship was always good and was what he expected it to be.
Yeah.
And in the midst of it all, I mean, I'm not going to say that I stopped working out, because it was one of those things that I would go and he would also go. But it was more of, I pursued his dreams and his passion, and everything that had to do with him, pretty much what became my main focal point to make sure that everything stayed happy.
Exactly.
And I hate to say it, but I was very young, and the relationship was for 7 years. And I ended up losing myself in the relationship. And now looking back, I feel really bad that it happened the way that it did, because I had to walk away from it, and it wasn't really his fault, and it wasn't really my fault. I think it was just, we were both very young, and we both became very successful at the very, very same time. And like during that time, I ended up realizing this isn't making me happy anymore. This isn't who I want to be. I've lost who I was. I need to push reset. And I pretty much walked away from the relationship, and I like separated myself. I wasn't going out with any of my girlfriends. I pretty much isolated myself for a good chunk of that time. And
to regroup, or
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ironically, I took that time. It was probably like a year or a year and a half
me too.
that I was by myself and just diving deep into what I was doing, which is just being by myself.
Yeah, and who you wanted to be.
Exactly. And
who you didn't want to be.
Yeah. And then after that, I ended up rekindling I never had a relationship with my husband, but we've known each other since junior high, my husband and I. But there was never anything that happened. But then
you met again later.
We met again, and it was just good timing.
Yeah.
And
you were ready at that point.
Yes.
You were you, which I totally I can relate to also, because when I met my husband, I was being true to myself. I had started going to church. I was just, I had stopped drinking. I was working out. I just wanted to be the best version of me. And then, like you said, then we got together, and we were friends for a long time. But then once we did start dating, I was like, you know what? I want to make the relationship work. And I lost myself a little bit because I was so focused on making sure that the relationship was good that I wasn't making sure that I was good, because men are a lot of work.
And like I said, I think it unfortunately, it happens to too many of us that we need to go ahead and realize, like, it's okay to push a reset button. You don't have to go completely in isolation.
Yeah.
But when you push that reset button as a woman, you realize, like, okay, this isn't really working. I'm not really being happy. I'm not really being authentic to myself. So then the next question comes, and I think that those are the golden questions that you need to ask yourself. Sometimes we're asking the wrong questions. We're asking, like, well, what is it? I read a book, and it tells you, it spoke about how when you ask a certain question, the universe will present you with the answers to it. But sometimes if those questions that you're asking are not the right ones, then you're gonna not get the right result that you're expecting.
That you're expecting, but you're going to get the result that...
Well, I feel like, how can I say, like when you end up saying like, well, what am I doing wrong? The universe will almost grab a mirror and show you, these are all the things that you're doing wrong, versus asking, what can I do to improve myself?
Yeah.
What can I do to be a better version of myself?
Yeah, you're right.
So those, just the difference in the questions, then God, the universe, will go ahead and say, well, let me show you what the path is so that you can be a better version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus showing you the flaws, so that way you end up...
You're not focused on the bad, you're focusing on the positive.
Exactly.
And then therefore, you know, you start seeing the positivity, the right path, you know. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's 1,000% true, where instead of focusing on whatever it is that your mind focuses on all day long is where your mind's going to take you. So if you're focusing on, and I mean, and I say this out of, because it happened to me. It's at one point, it's like I was sick, and then I have a heart murmur, and I was just having all these things going wrong, and all I focused on was like, oh my gosh, if I do this, if I get on an airplane, I'm gonna have a heart attack. If I do, you know, any little thing, if I go running, I'm gonna have a heart attack. If I do this, like, I'm gonna pass out, I'm gonna do this, so the whole time I'm living in fear, and little things would happen. I mean, I wouldn't have a heart attack, but I was always feeling sick because my energy was focused on that.
Yeah.
And then the moment that I was just like, you know what, you need to start being grateful, have gratitude, be thankful, wake up in the morning and, you know, name 10 things that you're grateful for. Start thinking positive, you know, working out early and just listening to my podcasts and listening to positivity. Like, I was no longer thinking about, oh my gosh, if I...
Because you were filling yourself with so much more other
negativity.
than...
Negativity, where I was, you know, I didn't want something to happen, but because my energy was focused on that not wanting to happen, it would happen. Wherever your energy goes is what, you know, it's what's going to happen.
It flows.
Yeah.
Wherever your energy goes, it flows.
It flows. So even if it's something that you don't want it to happen, it probably will, because you're constantly thinking about it. So if you think about something positive, it's going to happen.
Which, you know, and I completely agree with you 100%. And there's a lot of people that don't believe in The Secret. There's a lot of people that don't believe in this like fluffy law of attraction and energy, and that's totally fine. But I feel that if there's one thing that you can walk away with, is being able to be in control of your mind, like your thoughts. And
so now that you started Women of Grit and you've gone through all these things and you're focusing on yourself and you're, you know, helping yourself. So what happens in a situation, you know, again, where you come home and you had a long day, and like, what has it done to you? How has it improved your life? So
one of the big differences is I've been able to go ahead and collect information from different people, specifically different women, and it's almost like gathering little tools that have helped me now. And even though it's almost like those things when you end up reading a book or you watch a movie and you watch it for the first time, it's like an aha moment. You're like, oh my God, you know, that was so romantic, or oh my God, that was so fulfilling. Yeah. But then when you watch it or you read it a second time, you end up catching a lot of the things that you didn't catch the first time around. So that has definitely happened to me, where I come home and I realize, okay, I know what I don't want, so I need to replace it with what I do want. And it's definitely being mindful of what the end result that I want. So if I know I'm tired and I've had a long, frustrating day and I've dealt with jerks at work, what am I going to do different when I come home? And I'm not going to let it faze me. Yeah. And those are the things that I've learned to, and it's also about, like, I think feeling in control all the time.
Of course.
And now I'm okay with coming home and saying, okay, it's not the end of the world if the dishes are still going to be there tomorrow. I can take care of them later. What's more important to me is spending quality time with my husband and my children.
Yeah.
And being completely present.
Yes.
One of the biggest tools that I've been able to take
Take
away from the multiple events that we've had is not being on my phone. You know, if I'm going to be at home and I have limited time with my children, then I'm going to be completely present with them.
Yeah.
And little things like that, and it's incorporating those small things that are making my life more fulfilled.
Yeah.
And in turn, I think my husband has definitely seen it. Has seen the difference, that I'm not so quick to go ahead and snap. I'm not so quick to go ahead and point the finger and say, well, see, there you go, you didn't do it again.
Yeah.
You know, and it's having a different approach to things, that I'm mindful of how I'm delivering things as well. So just things like that I realize have made me a better person, have made me happier, and realizing that life is important. You only have one.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And
what do you think Women of Grit has done to some of the girls that, you know, go to
that
these
have
events?
attended?
Yeah.
Well, for one, I know
that you've seen and experienced, you know?
I think it's definitely given wings to a lot of these women.
Yeah.
For one, there was one event where it was all about moms, and it was about figuring how to create balance as a mother. And there was several women that showed up, different walks of life. There was some that were stay-at-home moms. There were some that are entrepreneurs. There was some that have a 9-to-5 job. And just being able to put them all in the same room and having them mix and mingle and realize that it doesn't matter what you're doing. You have so many things that bring you together and are more common than the things that separate you, which also goes back to our conversation when we first had our conversation over the phone. And I think it's so important to realize that there's more things uniting us together than separating us. And when you draw focus towards the thing that can actually unite us, that's a big takeaway. I go ahead and talk a lot about how it doesn't matter if you're in the same business, like a real estate agent, you know. Well, you're a real estate agent. I have a handful of friends that are real estate agents. You shouldn't see them as competition. You should see them as, okay, what's working for you that may not work for me, but may go ahead and if you shift this just a tad bit, how would that make a difference?
How can we collaborate? How can we
not see each other as competition?
Yeah, absolutely.
And granted, you're not going to go off and tell this other person all of your secrets, and that's totally fine, because that makes you you. But the way that you deliver something may be completely different than the way that I go ahead and deliver something. And it's true even in the kitchen. You can cook something and I can go ahead and cook the same thing, but it may taste completely different by one little ingredient that I throw into it.
Right.
And that is one of the things that I think many of the women have taken away, is realizing I am my own unique self. So it doesn't matter what X, Y, and Z is doing, because I can go ahead and start my own business, and it's going to be different from this other person who's decided to do hair or decided to do cosmetology, because we're all so completely different.
Yeah.
You know? And that's one of the things that I've definitely seen from some of the women, is some of these stay-at-home moms have found their voice to go ahead and say, you know, when their husbands come home, I need me time. Standing up for themselves and saying, you know, I've been at home with the kids all day. All I need is 20 minutes so that I can take a warm bath.
Yeah.
You know, little things like that have improved their lives, and that alone is a big takeaway.
Yes.
Or women that have said, you know, I was stuck doing this, and now I've made time to go and start my cosmetology certification, and I'm going to start my own business, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So little things like that are little coins of love that I feel are being deposited inside of me, that
you've contributed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that is so amazing. It really, I wish I would have found you sooner, because I feel like, and it doesn't matter in what walk of life you're in, at what state of life you're in, like you said, there's so many commonalities, especially as a mother. We all know how hard and fulfilling it is. So all the in between, oh, you do this for a living or do that, but you're still a mother. And so we have all these things in common that where, if we come together, we can just help each other shine. We can cry together. We can have someone to listen. Sometimes it's easier for you to vent to a stranger, to someone that doesn't know you, someone that's not going to judge you. So finding these groups I think is really cool, because you can do that, because sometimes it's hard to talk to your best friend, because they're going to judge you, or they're going to tell you, or, they're going to say, oh, you should have left him like a long time ago. But if you tell someone that doesn't know you, they're going to sit there, they're going to have compassion for you, they're going to listen, and they're going to want to help you. Especially when that's what you're there for.
Yeah.
When you want to help, you guys are all there for each other. So
Plus, I think often what ends up happening is if you're having these conversations with your friends, or you're having them with your family, they know so much of what you've gone through.
Yeah.
That they're so quick to tell you, oh, girl, throw in the towel.
Exactly.
Well, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Like you've obviously invested time into whatever it is that you're talking about, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your career, and it can work vice versa as well, where people will tell you, well, why would you want to start that? Why do you want to start your own business? There's a zillion people doing but they're not me.
Yeah.
And it takes courage and it takes grit to go ahead and stand up to these people and say, yeah, I understand that there's a million podcasts. Why would you start another podcast? Well, because they're not you.
They're not me. Yeah, exactly. That is so awesome. So what do you see for Women of Grit moving forward? What is your vision?
So now that we've condensed it to, it's a quarterly event. I'm definitely...
You were having it before monthly.
Every month,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's quarterly.
And you were getting a good turnout.
Yes. But now I've just decided that I wanted to go ahead and dedicate more time towards myself and not feel like, okay, I was on like
a schedule
of like putting together the event, finding who the speaker was going to be.
Yeah.
Now I'm condensing it so that this next event is happening June 23rd. It's going to be in Whittier at one of my good friend's house. She's got a beautiful home, and the title of the event is Nevertheless, She Persisted, and it is a mind, body, and soul event. Oh. So we're going to have Mario, a celebrity trainer, go ahead and incorporate a 20-minute workout for all the ladies.
And if you haven't watched his episode, you guys go back and watch Mario Guevara's episode. It was really amazing.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because ironically, now I think that there are more women starting women empowerment groups. And I think it's great because I think it's very much needed to go ahead and put more positiveness into the world versus negativity. But I also feel like with this whole Me Too thing, I think it's a give and take.
Right.
And I think it's so important for us to realize that although we can be independent women, it's also necessary to find good men that contribute to these women.
Exactly.
And being a mother, I think I know for a fact that I want to raise men that aren't intimidated by having strong, independent women, but contribute to that.
Yeah.
And it goes hand in hand. So with all of what's been going on in the world, I told myself, I want to go ahead and incorporate a guy. Why not go ahead and incorporate Mario, who his story is a powerful one.
Yeah.
And just including more male speakers into the event. So we're gonna have him. We're gonna have Kayla Cordova, who's actually also a real estate agent in the Orange County area. Her story by herself is very moving and very powerful.
Yeah, you told me.
And then we're gonna have this. She's actually a doctor who I ended up taking a mindset training course that pretty much opened me up to a lot of different courses. So she's going to come in and do more of like the spiritual work.
Oh, cool.
So it's the three key elements, and that's pretty much what we're gonna do for the 23rd of this event. Yeah.
And so you're gonna continue to have your events quarterly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you had mentioned that it's at this
invite
point
only.
It's invite from the girls.
Yes.
Within.
So at this point, if you've attended a Women of Grit event, then one of those ladies can go ahead and invite you, but that's the only way you would be able to attend the events.
Okay.
Which is why I told you, you're totally fine, because if I'm inviting you, you're totally fine.
Well, eventually you're going to have to do like a yearly event where it's just like a
big one.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what is written, so it shall be.
Yeah, there you go. You have to write it down in order for it to happen.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, thank you so much for coming. Tell the audience how they can reach you on your social media.
Okay. So we are on Women of Grit Official on Instagram. There's also a page on Facebook, and it's also womenofgrit.com on the internet. So you can send us a message there, or you can DM us directly on Instagram, which is probably the best way. Most of the events are posted there. We highlight different women, and yeah.
What about is your personal account? Are you public or are you?
Yeah, I'm
you're
public.
What's
so
your
my personal one is Jennifer Orellana.
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 Okay.
Yes.
There you go, you guys. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank
I really
you.
loved this episode. I hope you guys love it too. If you have, any comments, please leave it in the comments. Leave us a message. Again, I Am Becoming by Monica Singer. Go to my YouTube or podcast and subscribe, you guys. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Bye.